time today. Let's start by talking about some big earnings reactions, or rather the reactions that we're expecting to see today on something like a Trent or a Bajaj Auto. What is your view on both of those earnings and how do they look?
In the case of Trent, while the revenue was up about, I guess, 17%, it kind of still missed some of the street estimates. And as a result, the profits also were slightly below expectations. While their new store count still seems to be on track, I think Zudio will contribute to an improvement in the margins that was missed in the current quarter. So currently, we have to wait and watch how Zudio plays out. So I'd still hold off on Trent. Now, as far as Bajaj Auto, I think the company is extremely well positioned. The company will do well both on its exports and domestic front going forward, as well as its EV business. So in the coming interest rate cycle, cut cycle that we're going to continue to see, I think Bajaj Auto will be the primary beneficiary.
All right. How's the outlook like, Chakri, with regard to consumption overall? Would you play it through two-wheelers? Is that the best way to play?
You're right. Two-wheelers is still very well positioned, whether it's TVS Motors. You saw very strong numbers come from it. Now, Bajaj Auto numbers were all right. And, Hero Moto has one of the highest, segment in the mid-segment range and the lower segment range. So all these will benefit. And, once the auto usual buying cycle comes in the next quarter, they will also continue to benefit. And their EMIs will continue to go down with the interest rate cycle going down.
Chakri, any views on Lenskart before it lists today?
Great company and super high valuation. So I think we'll wait and watch this space.
Okay, and Chakri, just reading a Goldman Sachs note, they're overweight with regard to consumer, financials, and some of the domestic-driven themes. Staples, durables, auto, defense, technology, media is what they talk about as some of the themes that they are playing. What are you playing in this market?
Financials and industrials both will do well because financials, one, the valuations are very much in order. The credit cycle is just beginning. And in the balance sheets of all the companies, PSU and private are strong. There's enough government action now in reducing some of the stake in the PSU. So there are enough number of catalysts. So what is the one thing which is needed is a credit uptick, which will come once the tariff resolution, whenever that takes place. And that will form the beginning of the upcycle.
Okay, so that's the take on what your activities that we've seen. If you take a look at Friday's move, in fact, we've seen some FII buying coming back to the tune of slightly more than 4,000 crore rupees on Friday itself. The Goldman Sachs note that we were talking about earlier, wherein they've upgraded India to overweight, that talks about FII flows returning if earnings continue to be better or they turn better from here. Do you concur with that view?
One of the things that the FIIs clearly have sold in record numbers in the last 1 year. And for them to come back, for the FIIs to come back, what is required is an acceleration of earnings growth. Right now, we're sitting at the broader level in the market, probably about 8 to 9% growth. Now, that growth needs to accelerate. Where will that acceleration come from? One, the punitive tariffs going away. That will be the single biggest changing factor. So as and when that happens, only the numbers for the next 12 months can be revised up.
All right. What about some of these pharma names, Chakri? Give us your take. Divi's came out with numbers late on Friday. Rather, during market hours, stock slipped as well, despite it being a very, very solid quarter for Divi's. What's your take?
Torrent, strong numbers. Strong numbers from Torrent as well. Chakri, if you could help us with that too.
In terms of first about Divi's in the CDMO space, all these companies in the segment have made quite a lot of investments over the last 2-3 years. They've entered into fairly good contracts, and their revenue visibility is therefore strong. They're fortunately thus far not impacted by any kind of tariffs, or not directly tariff or indirect elements like how other sectors have witnessed. So with that backdrop, largely all these actions will translate into like a good 17-20% earnings revenue growth. All these companies, Divi's, Sai, all those companies in this space. So I think that's where the benefit of growth will come from.
how are some of these pharma majors shaping up on the chart? Something
How the numbers have played out?
This time in the economic cycle, clearly, the capex spending for its line of business has not yet picked up, and that is showing in the numbers. And don't see any immediate catalyst, business catalyst for the numbers to turn. I think so. Largely, that is largely hopefully a second half of next year's story, but nothing in the next 2 quarters, simply because the industrial cycle of the rectifiers has just not picked up yet.
Okay, so that's the take on transformers and rectifiers. But once again, shifting focus, and let's take you through the Lenskart listing.